Rachel's heart raced with a mix of excitement and nervousness as she looked at herself in the mirror. She had just finished getting ready and was now fully prepared to leave. Today was her birthday, and it perfectly aligned with her husband's return from an overseas business trip. She smiled to herself, imagining how surprised he would be to see her. A few moments later, Rachel left their bedroom and headed to the hotel where her birthday celebration was being held. When she arrived, she looked like a glowing princess. Everyone's eyes were drawn to her as she entered the venue. "Wow, you look absolutely stunning, Rachel. That red dress my son picked for you suits you so well." Her mother-in-law beamed, being the first person Rachel greeted. "Thank you so much, Mom. Honestly, I'm still feeling a bit nervous," Rachel replied, with a soft smile. "Why would you be nervous? You should be happy. Your husband is about to arrive. I invited all our business partners and friends. You know how much my son wanted this to be a grand celebration for your birthday. Just please, Rachel, don't disappoint me tonight. I want our guests to leave with a good impression of you," her mother-in-law said, with a gentle but firm tone. Rachel nodded politely, managing a smile. Her excitement grew even stronger, knowing that her husband would arrive any moment now. They'd been apart for weeks, and she missed him terribly. She couldn't wait to see him again. She began mingling with the guests, gracefully responding to each birthday greeting. Everything seemed to be going perfectly, until someone entered the room and immediately drew everyone's attention. Rachel's lips curled into a bright smile when she saw her husband, Richard, walking toward her. But that smile faded into a confused frown as she noticed the serious look on his face and the envelope he was holding. "Babe, I'm so glad you made it. I missed you so much," Rachel said, going in for a kiss, but Richard turned his head and avoided her. "You look well. The party looks good too. Seems like the right time to give you a gift," Richard said, his tone devoid of warmth. Rachel's nerves kicked in. Something wasn't right. He was distant, cold even. But maybe he was just nervous about a surprise? Her smile returned slightly. "What kind of surprise is it, love?" she asked sweetly. Without another word, Richard handed her the envelope. Her eyes lit up with curiosity as she eagerly opened it, but the joyful glow on her face slowly vanished as she pulled out the contents and read them. Her hands trembled. "Wait, what is this?" she asked, her voice faltering. "Divorce papers?" "I want you to sign the annulment papers," Richard said, plainly. Gasps echoed throughout the room as everyone around them froze in shock. "Babe, are you kidding me? What is this? Is this some kind of prank? Part of the surprise?" Rachel laughed nervously. "I'm not joking, Rachel. This isn't a prank. I'm serious. I want you to sign the annulment papers," Richard said, his voice unchanging, firm and cold. Rachel swallowed hard. She had never heard her husband speak to her like this, not since they got married. The use of her name instead of a pet name chilled her to the core. "But why? What's going on? Why are you doing this?" she asked, confused and panicked. "Don't play dumb, Rachel. I'm not a fool. You can't manipulate me anymore," Richard snapped, raising his voice suddenly. Rachel flinched, stunned by the outburst. "Honey, I don't understand. Why are you saying these things?" Richard let out a bitter chuckle, his eyes full of pain and anger. "All this time, I thought you truly loved me. I believed you wouldn't cheat on me, that you were different from the last woman who betrayed me. But I was wrong. You're just like them. Wasn't the money enough? What was missing? Am I not a good enough kisser? Am I not good in bed? Is that why you slept with another man while I was gone?" he shouted. Everyone around them looked horrified. Rachel stared at him, frozen. "Wait a minute, Richard. What are you talking about?" his mother cut in, clearly shocked. "Mum, I'm telling the truth. Rachel had another man while I was out of the country, and I have proof." He pulled photos from his pocket and handed them to his mother. She examined them and gasped. "Oh my God," she said, looking at the images of Rachel laughing and hugging another man. Rachel furrowed her brows as she saw the photos. "You're wrong, honey. That's not what you think. We're just friends," she defended herself immediately. "Really? Just friends? Then how do you explain the two of you going into a hotel room together?" Richard shouted. "You are unbelievable. So cheap." Enraged, his mother lunged at Rachel and pulled her hair. Richard quickly stepped between them to break it up. "Please, Mom, stop. Listen to me," Rachel pleaded. "He's just a friend. You've got it all wrong. Please, believe me. Save it, Rachel. Just sign the papers and let's end this," Richard said, shaking his head. "Those pictures are enough proof for me." Rachel stood her ground. "I won't sign them. I did nothing wrong, Richard. There is no other man. I never betrayed you. I don't know why you believe I could ever do such a thing. I know I'm innocent. If I sign these papers, it's like admitting I cheated, and I won't do that." Without hesitation, she tore the documents apart in front of everyone. Richard and his mother were too stunned to respond. Rachel scanned the room in embarrassment. Her face flushed. Unable to bear it, she turned and ran out of the venue, flagging down a taxi. Tears streamed down her cheeks as the cab sped toward Richard's mansion. But what greeted her at the gate shattered her further. As Rachel stepped out of the taxi and reached the front gate, confusion settled over her face. "Why are my things outside? Why is all my stuff out here?" she asked, hurrying toward her belongings. It didn't take long for her to realize what was happening. "Hey, Mr. Guard, are you there? Please let me in. Why is my stuff out here?" she shouted, pounding on the gate. "Ma'am Rachel, I'm really sorry," the guard said from inside the property. "Ma'am told me to put your things outside. She also said you're not allowed to come in." Rachel stepped back, stunned by what she'd just heard. "Please, Mr. Guard, let me in. I'm still Richard's wife. I still have the right to be here," she begged. But the guard didn't budge. He couldn't afford to go against his employer's orders. A few minutes later, a car pulled up, and Rachel immediately ran to it when she recognized it as her husband's. The back window rolled down, and Rachel walked up to it. "Richard, what does this mean? Why are my things outside? Why won't the guard let me in?" She fired off her questions, desperation in her voice. Richard glanced at the suitcase, then looked into Rachel's eyes, but the way he looked at her was empty, indifferent, as if he didn't even care. "You should be ashamed of yourself," Richard's mother suddenly cut in from inside the car. "My son wants a divorce. That means you have no right to anything related to our family. You don't deserve him." "Richard, please," Rachel cried. "I'm still your wife. I could never do what you're accusing me of because I love you so much. You know that. Please listen to me. How can you believe those photos over what I'm trying to say? Do you really trust strangers more than your own wife?" Rachel was in tears, clinging to the car window, but Richard said nothing. The window rolled up, and the car drove into the property as the gates opened, just for him. Rachel tried to follow, but the guards blocked her path. All she could do was cry, loud, aching sobs. She stood there for several minutes, praying her husband would come back out, hoping he might take pity on her. But he didn't. It was as if his heart had turned completely to stone. With her suitcase in hand and no strength left in her body, Rachel left and returned to her family's home. When she arrived, her mother opened the door and gasped. "Rachel, what are you doing here? What happened? Why do you have your suitcase? Why are you crying?" Her mother's reaction was full of shock and concern. Seeing her mother's face brought all the pain back up. Rachel threw her arms around her and sobbed on her shoulder. There, she let everything out. "What happened, honey? Did you and Richard have a fight?" her mother asked, already tearing up herself, rubbing Rachel's back. "Mum, he kicked me out. Richard doesn't want to be with me anymore," Rachel choked between sobs. What? Her mum exclaimed. And on your birthday of all days? What happened? Rachel pulled away and told her mother everything. How Richard had accused her of cheating, how he had served her annulment papers, and how he had thrown her out of their home. Her mother cried too, heartbroken by what her daughter was going through. Though the two hadn't been on the best of terms lately, her mother now embraced her with full support. Rachel's father was working overseas and rarely came home. Her younger sister had passed away from illness, but in this moment her mother's embrace felt like home again. Thank you, Mum, Rachel said. Thank you for not judging me or turning me away. I know things haven't been good between us, but thank you for letting me come back. I didn't know where else to go. They sat side by side on the sofa, Rachel leaning on her mother's shoulder. Rachel, you're still my daughter. I would never turn my back on you. No wonder I was so restless today. I almost went to your birthday party, but I thought maybe you didn't want to see me. It hurts me as your mother to see you like this. If your father were here, he'd be devastated too. Tears began to pour from Rachel's eyes again. The pain of what Richard had done to her was crushing, and she still couldn't believe he had accused her of something so terrible, something she could never even think of doing. She had tried calling Richard many times over the past few days, but he never answered, not even once. Still no word from him? Her mom asked, returning from the market. Rachel shook her head. No, he won't answer. I guess he really doesn't want to talk to me or see me ever again. Her voice was heavy with sadness as she helped her mom put the groceries away. Suddenly, Rachel bolted to the sink and began to vomit. Her mother ran after her, concern written all over her face. Are you okay? She asked. I'm just a little dizzy, Rachel replied. Her mom's brows furrowed, a suspicion forming in her mind. When was the last time you got your period? Rachel thought for a moment. It's been more than a month, she answered, slowly realizing what her mother was getting at. Later this afternoon, we're going to the doctor for a checkup, her mum said, returning to unpack the groceries. Rachel was momentarily speechless. She glanced down at her belly and gently touched it, the reality sinking in. Sadness washed over her again as she remembered the fight, the rejection, and the betrayal. That afternoon, Rachel went with her mother to the doctor. The results confirmed it. She was pregnant. Meanwhile, Richard received a text from his mum saying that his father had just arrived. He immediately left his room to greet him, as his dad had also just come back from an overseas business trip. Dad, welcome back, Richard greeted his father. Thanks, son. Honestly, I still can't believe what happened between you and your wife. I'm still in shock. I never imagined Rachel could do something like that. She loved you so much. That's what I thought too, Dad, Richard replied. I thought her love for me was enough for her not to hurt me. But I was wrong. I really don't know where I went wrong. I trusted her. I gave her a chance. But I never imagined she'd humiliate me and betray me like that. She's a different kind of woman, he added bitterly. I heard from your mum that you haven't spoken to each other since it all happened, his dad said. I don't know all the details, but maybe you should have given her a chance to explain. Maybe you two should have talked, especially now that it seems like she needs you. What do you mean, Dad? Richard asked curiously. I dropped by the hospital earlier to visit a friend, and I saw Rachel there with her mum. They were talking to an OBGYN. Why would they be talking to an OBGYN? Richard's mother asked, confused. Well, from what I overheard, it looks like Rachel is pregnant, his father replied. The shock on both Richard and his mother's faces was unmistakable. Richard, do you really want your marriage to end like this? Especially now? She hasn't even had the chance to explain her side, and now she's pregnant. Do you really want to abandon your wife and your child, your own child? His father said gently. In that moment, something shifted in Richard, his eyes filled with realization, and without another word, he hurried out. His parents exchanged a long sigh as they watched him go. At Rachel's house, she was sweeping the floor when a sudden knock at the door made her stop and head toward it. When she opened it, her expression turned to one of pure shock. She swallowed hard, stunned by the man standing in front of her. "How are you?" Richard asked, his voice hesitant. The longing in his eyes betrayed the regret he was feeling. Regret for what he'd done on Rachel's birthday. "What are you doing here?" Rachel asked coldly, turning her gaze away from him. Even though days had passed and she missed him terribly, she wasn't ready to let her guard down. The humiliation he caused her on her birthday had left a deep and painful wound in her heart, especially since he never gave her a chance to defend herself. Richard swallowed hard, remembering what he had done. He knew he had hurt her deeply. I'm sorry for what I did. I should have let you explain your side. I should have listened to you first. I regret everything I did. I let my anger control me, and I didn't think about your feelings. I just hope it's not too late to fix our marriage, especially now that we're having a child." Rachel's eyes lifted in surprise. "What? How did you find out about the pregnancy?" "My dad told me. He saw you at the hospital with your mum. Is that why you came? Just because you found out I'm pregnant?" she asked, suspicious. Richard fell silent. "I'll admit it. I'm still hurting from what you did that night. I was humiliated in front of so many people. I didn't even have the chance to defend myself. You truly believed I cheated on you. That wound is still fresh. I don't know what to feel, seeing you here," Rachel said, her voice filled with pain. Richard bowed his head, overcome with guilt. "I understand. I know it's not easy to forget what I did. I know it won't be easy for you to forgive me either. I get that, and I'm willing to wait until you're ready. These past few days, not a minute went by without me thinking about you. Even in my dreams you were there. I missed you so much, but I didn't know how to face you. I know what I did was awful. If you only knew how badly I wanted to answer your calls. But I held back. Now I regret everything. I want to save what we have. I want to be by your side during your pregnancy, to be with you every step of the way, until our baby is born." His voice trembled. Rachel's heart began to soften at his words, but she held back her emotions. She didn't want to rush into anything. She needed time to think. Her heart and mind were still raw from what happened. "I appreciate you coming here to talk to me, but for now I just need time to think," Rachel said softly. Richard nodded gently. "Don't worry, I'm not pressuring you." Rachel gave a faint smile and slowly closed the door. She leaned against it, letting out a deep sigh. In the corner, she spotted her mother, who had quietly listened to their conversation. Rachel walked over and embraced her. "You don't have to decide right away. Don't let yourself feel pressured," her mother whispered, stroking her daughter's back. "Let your heart heal first, then decide what you really want to do." Outside, Richard stood for a few more minutes before deciding to leave. The weight of regret stayed heavy on him. While driving, his eyes suddenly caught sight of a man stepping out of a building. Richard's eyes narrowed as he recognized the man. Without hesitation, he got out of his car and marched toward him, then punched him square in the face. "What the heck?" the man shouted, nearly stumbling from the force of the blow. "What the hell is your problem? You are my problem. What the hell is going on between you and my wife?" Richard shouted back. The man frowned in confusion. "Your wife? Wait, are you serious? You better watch yourself. I could call the cops for what you just did." "Answer me. I know it was you in those hotel photos with my wife," Richard barked. The man suddenly paused. Slowly, he let go of Richard's collar, a realization dawning on him. He studied Richard's face for a moment. "So you're the jerk who humiliated my friend Rachel. You're the husband who accused her of cheating without even letting her speak." He threw a hard punch at Richard, hitting him in the jaw. Richard didn't fight back. He simply wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "I've been wanting to do that for a while, ever since I saw you in the newspapers and on TV," the man continued. "You humiliated her in front of everyone. You accused her without hearing her out. Be thankful I wasn't there that night. But let me tell you something. You were wrong. Rachel didn't cheat on you. She loves you deeply. We were at the hotel because my wife and I were trying to reconcile. Rachel was helping us get back together. So get your act together. Don't believe a bunch of pictures without hearing your own wife's explanation." "You really pissed me off," he said, then stormed off as people nearby stared. Richard returned to his car and slammed his fists against the steering wheel. Frustrated, he cursed himself for everything he had done. And now his guilt had grown even heavier. In the days that followed, Richard didn't stop trying to make it up to his wife. Every day, without fail, he showed up at Rachel's house, bringing her different kinds of food, gifts, and flowers. "Thanks," Rachel said coldly as she accepted the chocolates and flowers he brought. "I'm going to the market. If you want, you can wait here and have dinner with us. But if you don't want to, that's fine too," she added, still unable to look him in the eyes. "That's fine. I'll wait," Richard replied softly. Moments later, Rachel suddenly ran to the sink and threw up. Richard followed quickly and gently rubbed her back. "How are you feeling? Do you want me to come with you to the doctor?" Richard offered. Rachel shook her head. "Number, I'm fine. It's normal. But thank you, and I'm sorry, love," she said. Richard swallowed hard when he heard her call him love. "Why are you apologizing?" he asked. "For the humiliation and the accusation, for assuming you had an affair. I should have found out the truth first. I should have listened to your explanation. I regret what I did. I can't even forgive myself for believing others over you, my own wife, and I won't get tired of apologizing to you until you forgive me," he said. Rachel let out a sigh. "You don't have to keep apologizing. I understand. You were just hurt, and I know you truly regret everything. But love, I want you to know. Your apology is enough," she said. "Wait, you just called me love again. Does that mean you've accepted me back?" Richard asked after hearing her call him by their pet name. A soft smile appeared on Rachel's lips as she nodded slowly. "Of course, love. I've thought about this carefully. I don't want my pride to get in the way, especially now that we're having a baby. I want everything to be okay when our child is born. If God can forgive, then why can't I? So stop apologizing. I forgive you, and I want us to forget everything that happened. What matters now is that you know I could never hurt or betray you. I love only you, Richard. That will never change. I married you. I'm having your child, so my heart is yours." Tears welled in Richard's eyes. In that moment, he hugged his wife tightly, smiling through his tears. "Thank you, love. Thank you for accepting me again and forgiving me. I promise I will never take this second chance for granted," Richard said. From that moment on, their marriage slowly returned to how it used to be. Rachel also moved back into Richard's family home, where they were welcomed by his mother. "I'm glad you came back," she said. "I'm sorry I didn't visit you. I was ashamed, especially of your mother, because I know I also did something wrong. But now that you're here again, I'll take care of you and my grandchild." "Thank you, ma'am, and don't worry, I won't let you down again. I'll prove to you how much I love your son," Rachel replied. After that brief exchange, Rachel and Richard went to their room, where he continued to assist her with everything. "I really missed this room," Rachel said with joy as she sat on their bed. "It's been a while. I missed lying on our bed." Richard sat beside her. "Love, do you want anything?" She shook her head. "No, not really. I'm not hungry yet. Right now, I just want to rest." "Okay, I'll stay here with you. he said, helping her lie down. He lay beside her, and her head rested on his shoulder. Love, do you want us to move out? Richard suddenly asked. Rachel looked up at him. Why? Is there a problem with your parents? Is that why you want to move out? No, not at all, Richard said. I just think it would be better if we had our own place, especially now that we're expecting a baby. It's time we start building our own life. I don't mind us moving, Rachel said. But will your parents, especially your mum, be okay with it, now that I'm pregnant? Richard nodded slowly. I'm sure she'll understand. I'll call my secretary to help us find a house you'll like. I want it to be big and comfortable, for you and for our children. Love, I don't care if it's not that big. As long as we're together, I'm content, Rachel said with a smile. Richard smiled back and embraced her. Days later, the couple visited the new house. Rachel was amazed. This house is beautiful, love. I'm sure our baby will love it too when they're born, she said in awe, looking around. I'm happy you like it. I bought it for us and for our growing family, Richard said with a proud smile. Oh, by the way, love, I hired some help. I got 3 housemaids to make sure there's always someone to assist you when I'm at work. That way I won't worry. 3 maids? That seems too much. 1 would have been enough. I can still help with things, Rachel replied. Love, you're pregnant. I don't want you overexerting yourself. I want you to focus on staying healthy until the baby is born, Richard insisted. Oh, you, Rachel said, laughing. But don't worry, I'll take good care of our baby so they're born healthy. Richard smiled and kissed her lips. Later, they checked out their new bedroom, which Rachel also liked. She offered to prepare dinner for them both, while Richard stayed in the living room to organize a few things. Then suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Richard answered it and frowned upon seeing the guest. What are you doing here, Nikki? He asked coldly as he faced the smiling woman. Why are you acting so cold? Don't you miss me? Come on, Richard. I just got back from the US. Can't you at least pretend you're happy to see me? Nikki said. I'm busy. We just moved in. So tell me why you're here and how you even got in, he said flatly. The gate was open, so this is the house you bought for you and your wife. I can't believe this. After everything, you still bought a place to live together? I thought you were going through with the annulment. So what's this? Why are you suddenly okay again? Did you forget what she did? I thought you were finally going to be mine. Richard scowled. What are you talking about? Have you gone mad? What made you think if I ended things with my wife, we would be together? Wasn't that the plan, Richard? It was supposed to be us, not you and Rachel, Nikki snapped. Love, who are you talking to? What's going on? Rachel called out as she walked up to him. Her mouth fell open when she saw Nikki, the childhood friend of Richard. Rachel instinctively held her belly, gently stroking it as if to let Nikki know she was pregnant. You're pregnant, Nikki said, her eyes falling to Rachel's stomach. Rachel nodded without hesitation. So that's why you didn't go through with the annulment, because she's pregnant? Nikki said, turning to Richard. Are you crazy? Did you forget how she cheated on you? How can you fall for her again? How do you even know that baby is yours? Nikki, enough! Richard shouted, startling both Rachel and Nikki. My wife didn't cheat on me, so stop poisoning her name. I know the truth now. The man in those photos was just her friend. She explained to me why they were together at that hotel. It all makes sense now, why you were so eager for us to break up. You had an agenda, but sorry to disappoint you, Nikki. Even though we were friends, I won't tolerate your madness. I love Rachel, and we're not breaking up like you hoped. Now that we're having a baby, I'm not letting you ruin us. So please, leave before I lose my patience, Richard said firmly. Then, without hesitation, he closed the door and turned to his wife. Did I hear that right? Nikki was the one behind those photos? Rachel asked. Richard nodded. She had a motive. She wanted to break us apart. Did she have me followed? Rachel asked. Looks like it. But don't worry, love. I won't let her come between us again. From now on, I won't believe anyone else but you. I'm sorry, Richard said, kissing Rachel's forehead and hugging her tight. More than 6 months passed, and the bond between Richard and Rachel grew even stronger. Living separately from Richard's family allowed them to understand each other more deeply. Rachel's belly had grown considerably. She was nearing her due date, and Richard became even more devoted to taking care of her whenever they were together. Love, after we buy the baby's things, can we visit my parents? I miss Dad. He'll be leaving again for work overseas soon, Rachel said, while standing in front of the mirror, fixing her hair. Sure, love, no problem. If you want, we can go there right after we finish shopping, Richard replied, as he continued getting dressed. Once they were both ready, Richard assisted Rachel into the car. Do you remember? I can't wait to finally give birth to our baby. I'm so excited to see and take care of our little one, Rachel said with a bright smile, gently rubbing her belly. Me too, love. I really can't wait to meet our little Junior, Richard replied with a smile as he carefully drove the car. Rachel was carrying a baby boy, and they had already agreed to name him after Richard, so both of them were filled with joy and anticipation to finally meet the fruit of their love. I love you, babe, Rachel suddenly said. Richard chuckled. Why, that's so random, he said, amused. What, can't I just say I love you? Rachel asked, pretending to pout. Richard shook his head. No, I love you more, babe. I can't wait to start a big family with you. As he said this, he reached over to kiss the back of Rachel's hand, and they smiled at each other. But Rachel's smile quickly faded, replaced by shock as she spotted a large truck blocking the road in the distance. Babe, there's a truck, she shouted in panic. Richard immediately slammed on the brakes, but a look of alarm crossed his face as his eyes widened in fear. Babe, what's happening? Rachel asked anxiously. It's not stopping. I think the brakes are broken, Richard replied, voice filled with dread. What? How could that happen? What do we do? Rachel was on the verge of tears, gripped by fear as they approached the stationary truck. With no other option, Richard gathered his courage and reached over to hold Rachel's hand tightly. She instinctively held her belly as if trying to protect the baby. At the last moment, Richard threw himself over Rachel, shielding her with his body, just as their car slammed violently into the truck. The loud crash echoed through the area. Minutes later, the sound of an ambulance filled the air as medics rushed both of them to the hospital. Lying on a stretcher, Richard regained consciousness and immediately looked around frantically. Where's Rachel? Where's my wife? He asked, despite the blood dripping from his head and the cuts on his body. Sir, she's in the emergency room. You need treatment first, a nurse told him, but Richard insisted on going to Rachel, struggling against the medical staff. Still, he had no choice but to let them treat his injuries. After a few minutes, the bleeding from Richard's head was under control. Can I see my wife now? I need to know how she's doing, he pleaded with the nurses. Are you the husband of the pregnant woman? One nurse suddenly asked as she approached. Yes, I am. Where is my wife? Richard responded immediately. Come with me, she said. Richard followed quickly and was met by a male doctor. Are you the husband of the pregnant woman who was in the accident? The doctor asked. Yes, doctor, I am. How is my wife? What's her condition? Richard asked anxiously. The doctor took a deep breath and said, I'll be direct. Your wife is in critical condition, and you have to choose whom to save, your wife or your child. The world fell silent for Richard. He couldn't even process what the doctor had just said. What do you mean, doctor? Why do I have to choose? Can't you save them both? I'm sorry, I know this is difficult, but we can only save one. If we try to save both, it might only worsen their conditions. You have to decide now, your wife or your child, the doctor said as calmly as he could. Tears began to stream down Richard's face. His chest tightened, and his heart felt like it was being torn apart. He looked at Rachel, still unconscious, bloodied and pale. He dropped to his knees on the hospital floor and sobbed uncontrollably. He couldn't believe he had to make this kind of decision. He loved them both, his wife and the child they had long dreamed of. "Why is this happening? Why not me instead?" Richard cried out, and even the people around him couldn't hold back their emotions seeing his pain. "I know this is hard, but you have to decide as soon as possible," the doctor urged gently. At that moment, Richard felt like giving up his own life to save them both, but he had to choose. With great anguish, he finally told the doctor his decision. Hours passed, and Richard remained seated, unmoving, by his wife's hospital bed, tightly holding her hand. When he felt her stir, he immediately looked up and saw her slowly regaining consciousness. "Love, thank goodness you're awake. How are you feeling?" Richard asked her right away. "I'm okay, love. I was more worried about you," Rachel replied softly. Suddenly, her eyes darted to her belly. "Wait, our baby. Where's our baby? What happened?" she asked, her voice rising in panic. Richard swallowed hard as tears welled up again. The moment he had feared was here, when he'd have to tell her the truth. "Love, why aren't you saying anything? Where's our baby?" Rachel pressed, her voice trembling. "I'm sorry. Our baby didn't make it," Richard said, his voice shaking. Rachel blinked, not immediately understanding. "What do you mean our baby didn't make it?" she asked, her heart pounding. "Your condition was critical. The doctor asked me to choose, to save either you or our baby. He said saving both wasn't possible. I'm so sorry, love. I loved our baby so much, but I couldn't lose you. I just couldn't. Please forgive me. This is all my fault. I couldn't do anything," Richard explained, his voice breaking, tears now freely falling from his eyes. Rachel's own tears began to stream down. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. She felt like she couldn't breathe. Her heart was being crushed. She couldn't speak. All she could do was cry. So Richard held her tightly, letting her cry in his arms. Several days passed, and Rachel was finally discharged. Back at their home, Richard cared for her tirelessly after work, especially while she was still recovering. He prepared her meals and brought them to their room. "Love, your food is ready. I heard you didn't eat breakfast or lunch," Richard said gently as he entered the bedroom, where Rachel was still lying in bed. "I'm not hungry," she replied coldly. Richard walked closer. "Please, love, eat something. I'm worried about you. You'll get sick if you don't take care of yourself. I made this myself. Please eat," he pleaded. Rachel slowly sat up, and Richard smiled in relief. He began to feed her, but to his shock, she suddenly pushed the plate away, causing the food to spill onto the floor. "I told you, I'm not hungry," she said in a cold tone. Richard sighed deeply. "I know you're still hurting. Losing our baby isn't easy, and I know you're angry at me for choosing you instead. I understand your pain, but please understand mine too. Losing our baby was devastating for me too. It was our dream. It was the hardest decision I've ever had to make. If I could have given up my life instead, I would have. Maybe you think I was selfish for choosing you, but I love you so much. I couldn't imagine living without you, and I couldn't bear for our child to grow up without a mother. If you're hurting, know that I am too. I'd sacrifice everything if it meant you'd be okay." Each word from Richard carried pain, and he struggled to hold back his tears. Rachel started to sob uncontrollably. "I don't understand why this happened to us. If this is a test, why does it hurt so much? Is God angry at us? Did we do something to deserve this kind of punishment? Why are we being tested like this? It hurts so much to lose our baby," she cried. Richard embraced her tightly and let her cry into his chest. He, too, was hurting deeply, but he knew he had to be strong for her. Eventually, Rachel fell asleep from exhaustion. Richard tucked her in and began cleaning up the food that had spilled. After washing the dishes, Richard poured himself a drink and sat in the living room, drinking without pause. "Lord, why are you testing us like this? Why not me? Why did my wife have to suffer? I love her so much, but I can't do anything to take her pain away," he cried out, tears falling as he continued to drink. Unbeknownst to him, Rachel was standing at the top of the stairs, silently watching him with tears in her eyes. Both of them were hurting. The dream of having a child had vanished in an instant, as if fate had stolen away their happiness. The next morning, Rachel woke up early and found Richard still asleep on the couch, surrounded by empty bottles. She quietly cleaned up and prepared breakfast for the two of them. "Ma'am, it's clear Sir is hurting too. My husband was the same way. He tried to be strong, but deep down he was in pain. Sir loves you very much, ma'am. I can see how much he's grieving. I hope you can both stay strong. Everything happens for a reason. I truly believe one day you two will be happy again. I'll go clean your room now," one of the housemaids said softly before leaving. Rachel paused, as if something in those words struck her. Once breakfast was ready, she approached Richard, who was still asleep on the sofa. "Love, wake up. Breakfast is ready," she whispered gently, caressing his cheek. He didn't stir. Rachel slowly leaned in and stared at his lips. Remembering how long it had been since they last kissed, she missed him deeply. She placed a soft kiss on his lips. Richard's eyes fluttered open. "You made breakfast?" he asked groggily, sitting up quickly. Rachel blushed and moved away to sit upright. Richard sat up, groaning as he held his head. "Sorry, love. I think I drank too much last night," he said apologetically. Rachel felt a pang of guilt, realizing how much Richard had been worrying about her without her even noticing. She hadn't realized just how deeply he was hurting too. "Love, thank you," Rachel said softly. "For what?" Richard asked, surprised. "Thank you, because even though I know you're hurting, you still think of me first. Thank you for loving me," Rachel said, her voice emotional. Richard smiled. "You don't need to thank me. You're my wife. I love you. No matter what happens, I'll never leave you." Rachel hugged him tightly. "I'm so lucky to have married you. But I also want to say sorry. I know I've ignored your feelings these past few days. I want you to know, none of this is your fault. Everything happens for a reason. Please stop blaming yourself. We didn't want the accident to happen. What matters is we're still alive. We can start over. We can build a new family." "I don't know what's gotten into you, love. You're suddenly so sweet," Richard teased, "but I'm happy that you're starting to feel better. I love you so much." After a long, emotional embrace, the couple shared breakfast together. Then they returned to their bedroom. Richard went to shower while Rachel paced back and forth, clearly anxious. When he came out of the bathroom, still drying his hair, he asked, "Love, is something bothering you?" Rachel walked over to him. "Are you heading to work today?" "Yeah, why? Is something wrong?" Rachel bit her lip, unsure how to say what was on her mind. "Can you not go to work today? I want to have you all to myself." She blushed and looked away. Richard grinned. He lifted her chin gently. "That's all? You just want me to yourself? That's no problem at all. I'm your husband. Why are you so shy? Just tell me what you want us to do today." He raised his eyebrows playfully. Rachel didn't respond. She just stared at his lips, clearly craving his touch. Richard's smile widened. Without hesitation, he kissed her deeply. Rachel kissed him back and wrapped her arms around his neck. Their kisses were full of longing, fueled by everything they had been through. Richard slowly undressed his wife and gently laid her down on the bed. Every kiss he planted on her body was filled with passion, not just from physical desire, but from overwhelming love. In that moment, all they could think of was each other. A few days later, while cuddling on the sofa, Rachel turned to Richard and said, "Love, what do you want for a snack?" "Anything's fine, love. I'll let you choose," Richard replied. "All right, I'll take care of it. But a kiss first," Rachel teased, pointing to her cheek where she wanted him to kiss her. But Richard, ever the playful one, kissed her on the lips instead, making Rachel laugh. Slowly, they were returning to how they used to be, learning to accept what had happened and focusing on making each other happy. Rachel got up to prepare their snack, while Richard turned his attention to his laptop. "Sir, I think this belongs to Mom," one of the housemaids said as she approached. "I found this earring in the garage the other day." Richard paused what he was doing and took the earring the maid handed him. "I don't think this belongs to my wife," he murmured, inspecting it closely. "But thanks, I'll ask her about it." The maid walked away, but Richard remained deep in thought, the earring still in his hand. Unable to shake his unease, he went upstairs and reviewed the CCTV footage from the day before the accident. Sitting in front of the computer, Richard felt a growing sense of dread. It was as if he was about to uncover something important. As he watched the footage, he spotted a familiar woman in the garage, accompanied by a man he didn't recognize. Richard clenched his fists tightly as the next scene played out on the screen. Suddenly, the door opened and Rachel entered the room, causing Richard to jump in surprise. He quickly moved to block her view of the monitor. "Love, what's going on? What are you watching?" Rachel asked. "Nothing, love," Richard replied, trying to sound casual. "I don't believe you. If it's nothing, why are you acting like that?" Rachel pressed. Unconvinced, she pushed past him to see the screen. Just like Richard moments earlier, Rachel's face changed, anger and pain flashing in her eyes as she watched. "Love, what does this mean? Why is Nikki there? And who's that guy she's with? What are they doing with our car? Are they the reason the brakes failed? Did they do this on purpose?" Rachel's voice trembled. "I can't believe it either, love, but it's all making sense now. That day I saw someone in the driver's seat of the truck that blocked us. I didn't want to assume the worst, but I think it was the same man who was with Nikki in the CCTV footage," Richard replied. Tears spilled from Rachel's eyes as the memory of the accident and their lost child came rushing back. "Nikki has to pay if she really did this. She has to answer for it," Rachel said, her voice firm. Richard nodded. "Don't worry, I'll make sure she does." They went to Richard's family home to inform his parents and ask for their help, but to their surprise, Nikki was already there. "Oh, kids, what brings you here?" Richard's mom greeted them. "It's a good thing you came. You caught Nikki before she leaves for the US." "That's perfect," Richard said, his voice steely. "Glad you're still here, Nikki." "Yeah, I'm glad I got to see you one last time before I leave," Nikki replied with a smile. "You're shameless. You're evil," Rachel snapped, suddenly slapping Nikki hard across the face. "What the hell is your problem, Rachel?" Nikki shouted, furious. "You're disgusting. How could you do this? How could you endanger us like that and cause us to lose our child? You're a monster!" Rachel screamed, crying. Nikki froze, clearly shocked by what she'd just heard. "Wait, what is this? What are you talking about, Rachel?" Richard's mom asked, confused. "My wife is right, Mom. Nikki is the reason we got into that accident. We saw her in the CCTV footage from the day before the crash. She was with a man, messing with our car, And that same man was the one I saw in the truck that blocked us. This earring? It's hers, Richard said, holding it up. Nikki stared at the earring in silence, visibly shaking. Nikki, is this true? Are you the reason Richard got into that accident? Are you the reason I lost my grandchild? Richard's mother asked, her voice rising in anger. Nikki couldn't answer. Fear had overtaken her completely. Just then, Rachel suddenly swayed, and Richard rushed to catch her. Love, are you okay? He asked, concerned. Rachel didn't respond. She fainted in his arms. Richard quickly carried her to the hospital. Moments later, Rachel slowly regained consciousness, and Richard was right by her side. Love, what happened? She asked weakly. You fainted, so I brought you to the hospital, Richard explained, holding her hand. What about Nikki? Has she been arrested? Is she in jail now? She can't be allowed to get away with this, Rachel said, her voice filled with urgency. Shh, love, calm down. Don't worry about her. I'll handle it. Mom and Dad are helping too. She's already at the police station. We have solid evidence, so I'm sure she won't get away with this. She'll pay for what she did. But right now, I want you to focus on your health. Don't stress yourself, Richard said gently. Rachel frowned. Wait, what do you mean? Is something wrong with me? Am I sick? A slow smile appeared on Richard's lips. Love, I have good news. You're pregnant. Rachel's jaw dropped, her eyes lighting up. Is that true? Are you serious? Richard nodded. I'm not joking. The doctor confirmed it. When I found out what Nikki had done, I was furious. But when I heard you were pregnant, that anger disappeared. This is a fresh start for us. We're going to have another child, and this time, I'll protect both of you until the day you give birth. It felt like music to Rachel's ears. Tears of joy rolled down her cheeks, and she embraced Richard tightly. Time passed, and Rachel and Richard's joy continued to grow as they prepared to welcome their new baby. When the day finally came for Rachel to give birth, she was taken to the delivery room, tightly gripping Richard's hand. He stood beside her, nervous, watching the doctor intently. Soon, the baby arrived. Relief washed over both of them as they heard the first cries of their child. But then came the unexpected. Ma'am, one more push. There's another head coming out, the doctor said. Rachel and Richard were stunned. We're having twins, Richard asked in disbelief. Since Rachel's new pregnancy, they had avoided learning the gender or how many babies she was carrying, so this was a total surprise. The second baby was delivered successfully, and just as they thought it was over, the doctor made yet another announcement. Actually, ma'am, you're having triplets. One more push. The doctor sounded just as excited as they were shocked. Richard was speechless. Overwhelmed with joy and disbelief, he couldn't find the words to describe what he was feeling. A few minutes later, Rachel gave birth to their third child. I still can't believe we had triplets, Rachel said tearfully. God is so good. We lost one child, but now we've been blessed with not just 2, but 3. I truly believe everything happens for a reason. Me too, love. I can't believe it either. Who would have thought there were 3 babies in your womb? Now we have triplets. I'm so thankful to God. He gave us not 1, but 3 angels. And I'm sure our first baby in heaven is happy for us too, Richard said. He kissed Rachel's forehead and gently hugged her. Over time, Richard cared for both his wife and their children. They raised their 3 sons with love and joy, each one a source of endless happiness. Meanwhile, Nikki continued to pay for her crimes behind bars. Through all the trials that Richard and Rachel had endured, nothing could compare to the happiness they now felt. Even though they had experienced loss, it was replaced by triple the joy. From that moment on, they strengthened their bond and deepened their love. That concludes the main story of Richard and Rachel.